Major announcements, delays, and train cancellations threatening the jobs, income, and the future state of economic sustainability for hundreds and thousands. And Union Pacific Railway, one of the two railroad companies that haul coal out of the Powder River Basin, is under fire for limiting shipments to customers, including power plants. The failure to meet customer coal demand has resulted in less coal fired power generation and higher costs to ratepayers for natural gas purchases to replace coal power. This is a direct challenge to the current energy crisis that is rapidly developing under the current Biden administration. Coal fueled power plants nationwide have responded by curtailing operations for parts of the year in order to conserve fuel for peak seasons. Meanwhile, the winter of 2021 saw a historic drawdown in coal stockpiles as a result of rising natural gas prices and bad weather. Continuing poor railroad service has prevented rebuilding those stockpiles. And Xcel Energy in Colorado, for example, says it's incurred more than $123 million in fuel replacement costs due to reduced coal by rail shipments, an unanticipated expense that is proposed to be passed on to its Colorado customers. So, in anticipation and to become better prepared for the possible likelihood of predictions of high winds and sub-zero temperatures moving east, Amtrak has canceled all service on some regional and long-distance routes while maintaining reduced service on others. Meanwhile, Union Pacific blames hiring challenges and rail system congestion while taking rail cars and locomotives out of service. More on that in just a moment, folks. Please subscribe to the channel and turn on notification alerts for future updates and breaking news and information that matters to you most. So, additional railroad cancellations included the St. Louis to Kansas City, Missouri segment of Lincoln service trains 318 to 319 to and from Chicago, leaving no service on that route. The eastbound Pere Marquette and westbound from Grand Rapids, Eleni Saluki, Chicago, Carbondale, Illinois, the Capital Limited, Chicago to Washington, D.C., and Lakeshore Limited, Chicago to New York, Boston, and the Cardinal from New York and from Chicago, the Southwest Chief westbound from Chicago, and the eastbound Chief from Los Angeles were all canceled after a BNSF railway freight derailment blocked the route west of Barstow, California. Monday's westbound train terminated there Wednesday after being delayed 6 hours by mechanical issues leaving Chicago. Empire Builder departures were canceled. Builders leaving the West Coast suffered significant weather and mechanical delays. All three ALC 42 Chargers leading Sunday's eastbound train broke down near Detroit Lakes in Michigan. The train's fourth locomotive, P42, number 203, maintained head-end power during the all-day delay. A BNSF unit came to the rescue, pulling the train into Chicago 17 hours late. The eastbound builder that departed Seattle and Portland, Oregon, over 6 hours late after a weather-delayed inbound arrival was more than 21 hours late headed across Wisconsin last week. So railroad workers across the country have been sparring with the railroads, union management, and Congress over a new union contract that Congress imposed on December 2nd. And this was to keep them from striking after a majority of railroad union members voted it down. The very same scenario could have played out much differently. The fact that a railroad strike didn't start is a huge win for the U.S. economy and its still struggling supply chain. But that doesn't mean freight railroads are providing good service to their customers. And the folks that should be most concerned and worried about this are in fact the railway freight workers and union employees themselves. Their jobs, their income, their livelihood is at stake and on the line. Many of the problems tangling up the supply chain, driving up prices, and slowing the economy can be traced to the steady decline in freight rail service in recent years. Even the railroads themselves admit that the nation's current freight service is a problem, mainly because of fewer calls to pick up or drop off freight cars, routine, prolonged delays, and the general unreliability that plagues the industry. Its critics and customers say the same. The Association of American Railroads, the industry's trade group, made a statement that said railroads understand that service is not at the level customers expect or desire. Aggressive measures are underway to put the right plans, people, and equipment in place to improve service and reliability. End quote. So the rank and file railroad workers say they're upset about not being able to take unscheduled time off without incurring stiff penalties, unsafe work conditions, and quality of life pressures like fatigue and overwork because railroad owners are understaffing routes. The big Class 1 railroads, including CSX Transportation and Norfolk Southern in the Southeast, have cut 45,000 workers, or 29% of jobs, over the last 6 years, and this is according to the Surface Transportation Board. Like those in other industries, including Delta flight attendants, Starbucks employees, and Amazon workers, many railroad workers say the upheaval from the COVID-19 pandemic has worsened these problems. And CSX freight engineer Angel Paventude shared his story about the changes he's seen in his workplace over the past few years. Paventude has worked on the railroad for 18 years as a member of the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen, one of the largest of the 12 railroad craft unions. When asked about the lack of paid sick days in the contract that Congress just forced through after 2.5 years of stalled negotiations, and why it's so hard for railroad unions to strike, and how that affects negotiations for the upcoming 2025 contract, he shared how short staffing and automation affect rank and file railroad workers and explains why turnover has spiked in a once stable industry. He also tells us what happens if you take a sick day. The complaints are widespread, with many other business groups going on record complaining about the poor service, including longer transit times and fewer trips by the railroads to pick up freight or return empty cars to the businesses they serve. Jeff Cooper, CEO of Renewable Fuels Association, said, "With the potential for a strike now behind us, we hope the rail industry turns its focus to improving timeliness, stability, and affordability for customers in the ethanol and agricultural sectors." Cooper and other groups representing rail customers said they were relieved that Congress acted when they did to stop a strike that could have started this devastating shutdown. It is important to note, however, that normal service is still incredibly bad and increasingly expensive for shippers and consumers. And this is according to Rob Benedict, Vice President of the American Fuel and Petrochemical Manufacturers, a trade group that represents the nation's refineries. And with the threat of a full work stoppage off the table, the next Congress must elevate the long overdue issue of freight rail reform to finally correct these abuses of service. Now, this is unfortunate that Congress is going to step in and take away their rights and create new laws, extending more government overreach and intervention and lowering the quality of life, with the only option for these workers being continue working as a slave, quit, and struggle to survive, or push back and risk being labeled a criminal and thrown in jail. Perhaps maybe they could go find a part-time job in a struggling job market that is on a declining trend and lose retirement plans and benefits for the sake of having some time off to spend with their families. Perhaps this was for the best. You all remember when the workers at the Hoover Dam went on strike. The National Guard was called out and 9 workers were killed in one single confrontation. And by the Guard, they were then ordered to go back to work, and they were not even able to leave the site for several weeks if they chose to quit. Now, it truly is a tragedy when you think about how demented and cutthroat our government can be. So coming up next on future videos, the clock is ticking in less than 30 days. These folks could be wiped out, folks. The plan of the FDA has been exposed. So the pandemic has not been kind to us, and that's a fact. Not only have we seen our way of life completely changed, but some have literally seen the lives of their loved ones stopped. Vaccines have been called a miracle drug throughout this health crisis. But were you guys aware of the adverse effects it has shown throughout the time that it's been given to us? So when it comes to the miracle COVID vaccines, each one has their own opinion, and that's fine. I respect that. Although, as new data continues to come out, it's become clear that a lot of things were hidden from the American public. Are you okay with crucial research being hidden from you, especially about something that's jabbed into your arm? And now in the new year, some continue to say that inflation is under control and things are now getting easier. But it's going to be hard to convince a lot of people since so many are stretching their money and credit to the limit just to keep their heads above water. The challenge is even worse for those who rely on SNAP, Social Security, SSI and SSDI, food banks, and other government subsidies as their cash flow is almost non existent. Do you feel that they are giving us the right numbers? Or is the truth being hidden from us yet again? This wouldn't be the first time. Now, we have a lot to cover and unpack, and I'm working hard to piece all this information together and bring you what no other channels are talking about. Thank you for allowing me to grab your attention for this short video. Until next time, folks, take care and be safe.